April 25th, 1986. In the Soviet city of Pripyat, 50,000 people are going to bed, not knowing that in 12 hours, their lives will end. Pripyat is a model Soviet city built just 16 years ago for the workers of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. Modern, clean, optimistic. The youngest city in the Soviet Union, average age 26. These are engineers, scientists, the best and brightest building the atomic future. Tonight, Reactor 4 is running a safety test. The night shift doesn't know that the reactor is already unstable. The operators don't know they're about to trigger the worst nuclear disaster in history. At 1:23 a.m. on April 26th, something goes catastrophically wrong. Reactor 4 explodes with the force of 500 Hiroshima bombs. The explosion blows a 1,000-ton reactor lid into the air like a bottle cap. The nuclear core is exposed, burning at 5,000 degrees. In Pripyat, 2 kilometers away, people see a beautiful blue light in the sky. Some come out on their balconies to watch. They have no idea they're being irradiated. Firefighters arrive within minutes. They're told it's just a normal fire. No one tells them the roof they're standing on is more radioactive than standing inside an atomic bomb. They fight the fire with their bare hands, throwing graphite blocks back into the reactor. Within hours, they'll start vomiting. Within days, they'll be dead. In Pripyat, the city sleeps. In the hospitals, the first radiation victims are arriving with strange burns and vomiting. The doctors don't understand what they're seeing. Dawn breaks on April 26th. Pripyat wakes up to a normal Saturday morning. Children go out to play. People go shopping. No one has been warned. The radiation meters in the city are reading off the scale, but the authorities have already ordered them shut off. The people must not panic. At the amusement park, preparations continue for May Day celebrations. The Ferris wheel will open in 5 days. It will never carry a single passenger. Invisible death is everywhere. Every breath of air carries radioactive particles. Every surface is contaminated, and nobody knows. By noon, the Soviet authorities finally admit there's been an accident, but they don't say how bad. They don't use the word evacuation. That afternoon, buses start arriving in Pripyat, hundreds of them forming a convoy that stretches for kilometers. The people are told they're leaving for 3 days. At 2 p.m. on April 27th, 36 hours after the explosion, the evacuation begins. 50,000 people, 2 hours, 1 suitcase each, leave everything behind. Parents tell their children it's just a short trip. They'll be back in 3 days. They leave their apartments unlocked, their food on the table, their lives on pause. Within 2 hours, Pripyat is empty. The youngest city in the Soviet Union has just become a ghost town. No one will ever live here again. The Soviet military moves in. Soldiers in hazmat suits walk streets that were full of children yesterday. They're measuring radiation levels that shouldn't be possible. At the reactor, the fire is still burning. The exposed core is spewing radiation across Europe. Scientists calculate it's releasing radioactivity every single hour. Helicopter pilots volunteer for suicide missions, dropping sand and boron onto the reactor core. The radiation in their cockpits is lethal. Many won't survive the year. In Pripyat, time has stopped. The calendar in every apartment says April 26th. The clock on the town square has frozen at the moment the power died. Soldiers go door to door, killing pets left behind. Dogs and cats, confused and waiting for their owners. It's necessary, they're told. Everything must be eliminated. The forest around Chernobyl turns red and dies within days. The trees absorb so much radiation they glow at night. They call it the Red Forest. Liquidators arrive, 800,000 men conscripted to clean up the disaster. They dig up the radioactive topsoil. They bury entire forests. They wash down every building. On the reactor roof, the radiation is so intense that robots malfunction within seconds, so they send men instead. 90 seconds maximum exposure, then the next man. Each man receives a lifetime dose of radiation in 90 seconds. They call themselves biorobots, the human machines sent where technology fails. In Pripyat, Nature is already taking over. Grass grows through the asphalt, birds nest in the abandoned buildings. The city is transforming into something else. At the hospital, the clothes of the firefighters are so radioactive they have to be buried in the basement. They're still there today, too dangerous to move. The Soviet government builds a massive concrete sarcophagus over Reactor 4, 400,000 cubic meters of concrete to entomb the radiation. It's supposed to last 30 years. By 1987, Pripyat is unrecognizable. Windows are broken, doors hang open. The forest is creeping into the city, one tree at a time. The amusement park stands silent. The Ferris wheel that never opened rusts in the rain. The bumper cars wait for children who will never come. In the schools, textbooks lie open on desks. Children's drawings still hang on the walls. Gas masks litter the floors from civil defense drills that became terrifyingly relevant. The hospital still has patient records. The maternity ward still has cribs. Time has stopped, but decay continues. It's a city frozen between life and death. The swimming pool is empty now, full of broken glass and debris. This was where young engineers swam after work, where children learned to dive. The Palace of Culture still has its grand piano. Movie posters still advertise films from 1986, a frozen moment of Soviet optimism. By the 1990s, looters have stripped the city. Everything metal is gone, copper, aluminum, even radioactive steel. They're selling contaminated metal across Europe. But nature doesn't care about radiation. Wolves return to the exclusion zone. Wild horses roam the streets. The forest is devouring the city. Scientists discover something unexpected. Without humans, wildlife thrives. The exclusion zone has become an accidental nature preserve. The radiation is still here. It will be here for 20,000 years, but life has adapted. Trees grow, animals breed. Nature proves more resilient than concrete. In 2006, the concrete sarcophagus starts to crack. Radiation is leaking again. The world builds a new shelter, a massive arch of steel, the largest movable structure ever made. Today, tourists come to Pripyat. They walk the same streets the evacuees fled. They take photos of the Ferris wheel, the school, the hospital. The radiation detectors still click constantly. Hotspots are everywhere. Stand in the wrong place for an hour, and you've absorbed a dangerous dose. Some of the evacuees returned, mostly elderly women who refused to die anywhere else. They live in the forbidden zone, tending gardens in radioactive soil. Reactor 4 still burns, a slow nuclear fire that will continue for thousands of years. Under the new sarcophagus, the destroyed core waits, eternally dangerous. Pripyat will never be inhabited again. The radiation levels will be dangerous for 20,000 years, longer than human civilization has existed. This is what the end of the world looks like, not with a bang, but with an empty city slowly disappearing into the forest. The Ferris wheel still stands, rusted and frozen, a monument to a future that never came, to 50,000 lives interrupted in an instant. Pripyat, the city that died in 2 hours and will remain dead for 20,000 years, a reminder that some mistakes last forever.